So I'm here today to say to all of you, because sometimes it can be damaging to one's self-esteem. Sometimes we can then tend to introvert and introspect and blame ourselves. So the first thing I'd like to say to everybody here today is that the rise of anti-Semitism, not just in Britain, not just in Europe, but across the world, has absolutely nothing to do with you. It is not your fault. You have done nothing wrong. Do not let them make you feel guilty. Do not let them make you feel somehow lesser. Do not let them make you feel you have to hide your Jewish identities. Raise your identity in pride. Raise your hands now and show all of the cameras and all of the television people that you are proud to be who you are, and you will not hide it. You will not hide your ethnicity, your religious convictions. You will not hide your culture. You are proud, and if I have anything to do with it in this country, I will continue to fight to make sure that you are safe. The second reason I stand here before you today is a reason that temporarily, I'm now 36 years old, but for about 12 years of my life, between the age of 16 to 24, it would have separated me from all of you lovely people. And that reason is that from being the bullied person, from being the victim, I became the aggressor. I became the beast that I was attempting to defeat. And at the age of 16 years old, during the time of the Bosnia genocide, and during a time of rising racism in the United Kingdom, I became an Islamist extremist. Through my anger and through indoctrination and through my blindness, I joined an organization that demonizes every one of you here today, and that path eventually led me to prison in Egypt, as was introduced. And so the second reason I stand here before you is because I know what that beast looks like. And I know what is responsible for the rise of anti-Semitism in Britain and across Europe. And that is known as the ideology called Islamism. Islamism as an ideology seeks to politicize my faith, the religion of Islam. And briefly defined in one sentence, it's the desire to impose any given interpretation of Islam over society. And that ideology has been on the rise in Britain and across Europe, because it wasn't just tolerated in the 90s, it was actively encouraged as part of a policy that misguidedly sought to produce some form of diversity in this country. But instead, what happened was that my co-religionists and I grew together with you apart. We grew together in self-segregated ghettos. And the Islamist ideology, as it rose, it thrived on the demonization of the other, as all forms of fascism can only but do. It thrived on the demonization of the other. It needed an enemy to galvanize the paranoia within my own religious communities. And then in came, to that toxic cocktail, those on the far right and those on the far left, who found with Islamism a convenient ally to demonize the traditional victim whenever fascism is on the rise, and that is the Jewish minority communities across Europe. So what happened, brothers, sisters, friends and allies, what happened next? As Islamism rose across Europe, in Britain, the far left, I call them the regressive left, they found common cause with the Islamist extremists on foreign policy. And in France, the far right found common cause with the Islamist extremists on domestic policy. What is the one factor that the far left in Britain have with foreign policy and the far right in France have in terms of domestic policy in common with each other? That is the Jewish communities. So the Jewish communities suffered because the far left in Britain allied with the Islamists because of their vitriolic hatred and delegitimization of the state of Israel, and the far right in Europe and in France in particular allied with the Islamists because they both hated Jewish people within France itself. So the victims in both cases became the Jewish communities.